Well, we'll start with our formal first questions, like a four-part question. Starting off, what is your name? What are your pronouns? And what is your ethnicity?
So my name is Tricia Lee, and my pronouns are she, her. And my background is Chinese. My parents were born in Singapore.
Amazing. I'm Chinese as well. My parents were not born in Singapore. But yes, we love that for us. And then the second part of that first question is, who are you?
Well, that's a big question.
The big question.
Well, I am a filmmaker. I am a writer director. Um, I try not to define myself just by my career and job, but most of my life is encompassed by that, so I don't know what more to say other than that.
Absolutely. And getting into that, I read up a little bit on your, I guess, your biography, and you are originally from Toronto. And I can imagine there, same as, here, being a filmmaker is not a career path that's very commonly like encouraged by a lot of Asian American households, just to sort of generalize, I guess, our upbringings a little bit. What was your experience like that, and sort of, I guess, getting the support that you needed to sort of like start this career, which is a very, I guess, a brave thing to do for a lot of us. And when did you know that you wanted to be a filmmaker?
Well, when I was a kid, I thought I wanted to be a psychiatrist, which made my Asian parents very happy because they're like, great, you want to be a doctor? And my mother was the kind of person who would take me to the guidance counselor when I was in grade eight. She took me to a high school guidance counselor to plan out my whole, like all my science courses, my math courses to get into university, to get into med school. But my parents took me on this trip to Florida, and I went to Universal Studios, and I saw behind the scenes how movies were made. And I came back from that trip and I was like, I want a career in media.
Mm.
And they're like, oh God, what have we done? So it kind of started from there. And when I was in high school, I joined I did the like school drama, but it wasn't a stage play. It was actually half on video and half live action. And so I directed like the video stuff. I taught myself how to edit on Adobe Premiere when it was like, first out. And uh, yeah, and then slowly in high school, I dropped algebra and geometry. I did not end up taking chemistry and biology, which you need to get into med school. So just like, step by step. And then I took design and tech, and I would create videos myself. And by the time it was time to apply for university, I applied for all the film programs. And so I think that part of it was a rebelliousness in me that I was like, I'm going to do what I want to do. Like, whether you support me or not, I'm going to do it. So, and eventually, I think they could see my passion for it, or maybe my stubbornness. I don't know. And, I ended up, I shot a lot of short films and stuff, and I shot my first feature film in 2011, and we shot in my parents' house for 12 days. And, my second feature, my parents were, doing the catering and the craft services, and like my mom took time off of work, and they were like cooking in the kitchen for a crew of like 30 people. So, definitely, eventually they did come around to it. And I don't think there was a specific time. It was just, I think, just my stubbornness that I was like, I'm going to do this with or without you. So, yeah.
Yeah. And now since they've seen you work with, do a lot of different projects, work with a lot of like, I guess big name actors and stuff. Now you finally got the stamp of approval.
Yeah, I guess so. Asian parents are.
Yeah.
Come to like the premieres that I had in Toronto, and I
Mm.
guess they were proud. I don't know. It's not like a big Asian thing to like express your feelings, I suppose.
Mm. Yeah. But I guess you're doing the thing, and they're sort of still, you're still getting the support that you need from the community back home,
Yeah,
you would say.
yeah.
Yeah. And I also read on your website that a lot of your, I guess, storytelling or your storytelling lens is sort of influenced by coming from Toronto, sort of wanting to come to LA or come to the States, and sort of, I guess, navigating the American dream, so to speak. Could you talk a little bit about how that lens has impacted your storytelling and sort of developed your I guess storytelling voice?
Sure. It's interesting because Canada is so similar in geography and culture to America. In some ways, I didn't really feel like I was, coming into anything too different than I was used to, and I didn't really think that I was after the American dream. Um, as a conscious thing. And then, during the pandemic, I co-wrote a script called American Dreams, actually. And so I really took a deep dive into what is the American dream and, what is it that people come here for? You always hear, oh, come here for a better life, but like, what does that mean exactly? And so, in some ways, I do feel like I'm looking in from the outside, and I think after that sort of deep dive, I realized maybe subconsciously I was after the American dream because I came here to, sort of expand my career, and I felt that that was possible here, and so that's big reason why I came, and I think it whether I do it consciously or not, my perspective as being somewhat of an outsider just flows into my work naturally. That the script I was telling you about, American Dreams, but also I wrote a script called Good Chance, which is also about the immigrant experience. It's actually an undocumented Asian woman. Not that I, have had that experience, but I think these types of stories interest me.
Yeah, absolutely. And are you still tapped into the Toronto filmmaking scene? You mentioned earlier that you've had some premieres in the city. I know it's a big industry there in Toronto in film. Are you still involved in any way there?
Not too much, to be honest. It's so much effort to build a career in any city and friends and colleagues. So I have really focused on LA, and um, the premieres that I had were when I lived there. So I moved to LA in 2017. So sort of made the transition at that point.
Gotcha. So coming to LA, or I guess maybe even going back to after you got out of film school, how did you start breaking into the industry? I guess in Toronto, and then after that into LA.
Mm-hmm. I made short films. I made my own films. I actually, when I graduated, when I was 21 years old, I actually came to LA for, for quite a few months and volunteered on a bunch of films and, tried to sort of feel my way around the industry here. But the thing is, I didn't have a visa at the time. So, all the lawyers were like, you either need to get married to an American or you need to win an Oscar.
Yeah.
I was like, sure, I'm 21. Give me a couple of weeks. So I ended up going.
One of those things will happen.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I ended up marrying an American.
There you go.
Bringing my husband when I earned my green card. But in terms of breaking into the industry in Toronto, I made short films. Just, with a lot of them with my own money, teeny tiny budgets that I would shoot in the park behind, my parents' house. And then I would get a few grants for $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 to shoot some short films. And then my first feature, me and my two producers, pulled our money together and we made a feature for 20,000 Canadian dollars.
So starting very, very from just doing your own thing, buying your own equipment, towards doing being very involved in the business side of filmmaking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause I know that's something that like actors probably need to know a lot about, but it seems like a very, Yeah, I mean, same as creating theater, it seems like a very intricate sort of business. A lot of networking, a lot of um, pitching, a lot of sales that go into that. Yeah, and I'm also interested in hearing about how you sort of started to develop your directorial style and directorial voice, because you're both a screenwriter and a director, but more towards the just the directing side. How did you start to develop your own style?
I don't know that I could define for you what my style is. And so I don't know that I'm consciously was developing a specific style. Um, what I can say is I have worked through intuition so much of my career. Like I went to film school and you learn a bit, but like um, a lot of it was kind of feeling my way through, and just what do I like this or do I not like this? Like if there's something with the performance, what can I say to try and shape it into the way that moves me?
Mm.
Um, and yeah, it's hard to define what taste is, but something more concrete and tangible I will say is that I have studied with Joan Sheffel. If you've ever heard of her, she's it's very hard to explain what she does, but she's worked with Joey Soloway and John and Val on Little Miss Sunshine and Nikki Caro on Will Rider. And since working with her and learning her technique, I have found a way to channel my intuition into tangible tools. And my craft has certainly changed since I've started working with her.
Mm.
So that's one thing. And another thing is on the visual side, on sort of the more visual design and cinematography side, I highly recommend a course called Film Reframed. Um, Roman runs it with Casey, and they are able to. When I look at films and I'm like, I like that film, I like the design of that film, but I could never put into words exactly what it is. I can just say I like it or I don't like it, but they are able to break down what it is in visual design that makes a pleasing image. So anyways, I highly recommend that on the visual technical side.
Yeah, absolutely. And it does seem like you have worked, or the films that you have created, you have sort of adapted, I guess, different styles. I saw the piece that you did with, I guess, Simu on your website, when it's very like brightly lit and sort of very sort of open. And then the I guess the short that we met on, which was kind of seemed very like contained, very like dark. Um, Sort of a totally different like style. So yeah, I guess you would say that your style is sort of adaptable, sort of a variety at this point, or and continuing to evolve.
Yeah, and a lot of it has to do with the story that's being told, right? Like,
Right.
I would never tell Meeting Mommy in a dark style because it just doesn't fit the story. Um, but uh, something I wanted to say now, I forgot it. um,
Yeah, just you adapt to what the story requires.
um, yes. Oh, I remember what I wanted to say. So I think that the thing that all of my films do have in common is that it comes from what the meaning of the story is. That's sort of my guiding light, my north compass. Um, and I really am passionate about telling stories that have meaning. Also, entertainment value for sure, but I want to leave the audience with something.
And more on that, what are sort of the kinds of stories that have meaning for you, that kind of move you? If you could sort of pinpoint what it is that kind of gets you excited about a certain project, what might that be?
If I'm reading a script that I didn't write, I think it's if I'm moved, whether that's my heart or my mind, or it makes me think of something new, or it touches something personal. I think those are the things that really resonate with me.
Yeah, absolutely. And just sort of anything across the board, I guess, not necessarily like different like period pieces or like different moments in time, historical pieces, just sort of anything that sort of gives you sort of a reaction, and like, oh, I want to go for that kind of story.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm interested. I'm not really like into history or anything, so I wouldn't say I would never do a period piece, but there's not like a time in history that I'm particularly interested in.
Gotcha. You mentioned starting off creating your own work. That's something that on my podcast I talk a ton about, the importance of doing that. A lot of people are, scared to do that, especially actors. We don't know like what to do, how to start. But obviously, if you're a filmmaker, you kind of really have to. What advice would you give a young filmmaker or a young dramatist of any sort who wants to start creating their own work? What should you do, or how can you get started in that process?
I mean, start with a short film, and look, I have been a director. That's, the thing that I've always wanted to do. And similar to actors, like I can't direct anything if I don't have a script. So I only started writing 5 years ago when I got to LA. I didn't write before that. So I never considered my writer. I really felt like I was starting from ground zero. So I totally get it. I listened to podcasts. I took classes. I reread all, like film school screenplay books. And really, just look, my first feature that I wrote, I did the cards and was like planning out all my beats and everything for 8 months before I was too terrified to write a single word on the page. And and I think that part of the process is even finding your own process. I now know that I don't like that process. I actually now I do a little bit of like the beat work and stuff, but I go to the page a lot earlier now. But that's something I had to find for myself. So all of that kind of boils down to you just have to do it. Show up, put your hands on the keyboard and type something. Or research. That's also part of the process as well. But in the end, you just got to sit down and write. And maybe the first draft isn't good. It probably won't be. And then, send it out for notes and keep revising until you have something that you're proud of. And then, go out and shoot it. And I know it's much easier said than done, but for the sake of continuing to create, get together with your friends on the weekend and use an iPhone if you have to. In the end, if the story resonates, the quality, it can get there as you get bigger and bigger budgets, but just go and do it.
Yeah, go and do it. And as they say for our young screenwriters who are listening, what did they say? A bad screenplay is better than a screenplay that is not written, or something like that. And I think that's definitely true. Like you're saying, like, I guess you have to go and do the thing. And then you grow, I guess, the skill set over time, and you continue to evolve. So when you sit down to write, how do you sort of find the inspiration for a story? Do you wait for something to come to you, or do you sort of go and like seek it yourself?
I spend so much of my time rewriting that, even though I've been writing every single day for the last 5 years or whatever, I don't have a ton of stories and ideas. But where they do come from, I mean, I think it just starts with the kernel. I'm just thinking about my American Dream script, which I co-wrote. I didn't write it by myself, but it started at the beginning of the pandemic, and I wrote to my longtime collaborator. His name's Corey Brown. And I was like, we had this old idea that we had written a script for, and it didn't really go anywhere, but we sort of took a kernel from it, and we sort of built on that kernel. Like, it just starts with like, oh, I want to make a movie about this. Okay, well, then let's see, what kind of character would suit that? Or, if it's something based on something that happened in your life. I'm writing a pilot right now about something that happened to my uncle at the beginning of the year. And it's a crazy story, and it's one of those like, oh my gosh, you have to make that into a movie. So I'm like, okay, well, this is the kernel. What What are the locations? What nugget do I want to talk about? And then how can the plot and the characters and, whatever the relationships, how can that all form to tell the story that I want?
Yeah. Just drawing from real life experiences, your experiences, memories, these sorts of places.
Yeah. And I think, not that everything has to be based on something that's real, certainly, but I think in terms of the truth of your experience and your feelings and the way that you relate to the world, I think that movies and scripts are a great opportunity to be able to put that truth in, even if it's not based on an actual event.
Right. Absolutely. So over the years, you've worked with a lot of different actors. Obviously, as a filmmaker, you have to, unfortunately. What do you enjoy about working with actors, first of all, and also what do you find challenging in terms of being in the, I guess, on set with actors or in the rehearsal room?
I love collaborating with actors and seeing them bring this character to life. As a writer and as a director, I'm sort of holding the whole thing. And of course, I've gone through and, plotted each character's journey, but as an actor, you get to focus and really create this from the singular perspective, because, you figure out what is their nature, what is their backstory, and how does that inform how I'm going to give this performance. And I love the stuff that actors come up with that I never even thought of. And we can't do this without actors, so it's all a collaboration, right? Like, I can't do it without any of the crew, for all the different aspects of it. And I mean, any pet peeves or anything about actors? I guess I'll just say that, like, I like to create a space that is safe for actors to come to me and also for me to go to the actors. And so, I don't love when actors, let's say, gripe in front of the crew. It's like, let's create a safe space for each of us to work in, and let's have that go both ways.
Without naming names, have you worked with some actors who have given you those sort of problems? You can kind of feel their ego, that they're not really like trying to I guess, work with you, or they're I guess, for lack of a better word, sort of creating resistance to the process. And how do you like deal with that when that happens?
I think that I've been very lucky that I haven't dealt with egos, but like not huge. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure everybody has a bit of an ego, but nothing crazy. When an actor did say something in front of the crew, I don't think it was coming from ego so much as it was the person was just trying to understand, or they didn't understand something. And so that was just their way of dealing with it. But anyway, it's a learning experience for me, right? Like, I didn't set the parameters, and so now I learned to do that.
Yeah. Is that a skill that you think a lot of filmmakers, like, how do you sort of grow that skill? Because it's very, you're sort of in a managerial sort of role. Does that come with experience, or are there certain, I guess, where do you get that knowledge from?
Honestly, I'm still learning, but I have learned to just say it out loud. What is it that creates a space? Like, I'll ask the actor, what is it that creates a space for you to feel comfortable to take a risk? And I will give my own examples of what makes me feel comfortable, which then in turn creates a space for them to share what makes them feel comfortable. And so if that is spoken out loud, then we know each other, and then that space gets created. And it also has to be maintained, but let's start with just talking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of the creative space, so I saw you work on an upcoming short, which is called See This, a couple of weeks back here in New York. up in Queens, actually, not in Brooklyn. But what was your experience with that project? What are your hopes for that project as it comes out and is in post production?
Oh, I just loved the experience. Um, the cast and crew was amazing. The producers were so great and on top of things. So great to work with. And I did all my rehearsals over Zoom with all of the actors.
Mm,
But we had a blast. I loved the rehearsal process. Um, we we created it, we weren't even rehearsing the scenes and the dialogue so much as we were just creating relationships between the pairs of characters and just giving them some space to experience each other in character so that, when we get onto set, then, we can, we have that history together. I would, when this is done, I would love to see this on the festival circuit. Fingers crossed for a good North American premiere at like Sundance or South by or TIFF or something like that. I hope that people get the opportunity to see this film because it's a great script and great acting, and I got to play around with the visual style, and the cinematographer was amazing, even though we had, not a lot of equipment, not a lot of crew, not a lot of time, but it turned out amazing.
yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned the rehearsal process because I know that some filmmakers and some directors have different sort of philosophies around that. Are you sort of big on rehearsal and sort of being really directing the actors during that time, or sort of what is your process around that usually, or does it depend from project to project?
I honestly have not really had many rehearsals,
Mm,
nor have I fought for them because I think that I didn't know what to do, honestly,
mm,
in a rehearsal. And I was very scared of over rehearsing it, and then, like sort of bleeding the life out of it.
right.
But I have learned this new rehearsal process. And like I said, we read through the scene a couple of times, but it really was not focused on the performance or, tweaking anything because you're just going to kill it.
Yeah.
But it's really about getting to know each other and the actors getting to know their scene partners. And like, for instance, there's two characters that have been coworkers for like 8 years, and they're sort of like best work friends, right? And so we got to take that opportunity to sort of move through and experience and improv some scenes of when they met, of when this one of the characters got their first promotion, and sort of experience that together so that they have that chemistry on the day.
Yeah. And you felt in you I guess at least in that project, do you sort of, or I guess in general, when it is working, do you sort of feel that like, what do you do if you find that like something is not working? How do you sort of like get the actors on back on track?
Um, I think first take a breath. Let's
Mm,
ready to take a breath. And I mean that's my job as a director to find uh a you know as directing 101, action verbs. What is your intention? What is your backstory? What is the moment before? And try and find what is that piece that connects with the actor that gets you what you're looking for. And sometimes it might be something that's indirect. Maybe it's something getting the person who's off camera to do something different. Um, yeah, I mean, it obviously depends on the situation, but that's my job to figure that out.
yeah, absolutely. I did want to ask you what upcoming projects do you have coming up that you maybe wanted to share, or just in a more general sense, like what is the next step in your career? What do you hope to achieve in the coming years?
I mean, I want to continue to direct. I want to get my next feature off the ground. My script, Good Chance, which is my heart and soul on the page. It was on the blacklist.
Mm,
Um, I we're working on getting financing for that. So I would love to shoot that this year. I, American Dreams, which I've mentioned a couple of times, I'd love to get that made. It's a bigger movie. It's a grounded sci-fi thriller. So, I'm looking to attach a director, and when it's specifically, hopefully, an Asian director, because it is very much sort of steeped in Asian American experience. I think honestly, more generally, my goal is to work with good people and make great projects, but to work with good people.
Yeah. Sometimes easier said than done, but definitely, definitely possible. Absolutely. You mentioned as we wrap things up, you just mentioned the AAPI experience. I did want to ask you because obviously in this, well, at least to me, it seems like in this industry, there is very much a lack of representation of especially of AAPI women filmmakers and directors. What was sort of your experience holding those identities and moving through the industry? Were there times where you found certain like resistance, or just sort of in a general sense, what has that been like for you?
I have found, trying to make it in this industry, it's hard. It's been hard. I'm going to be honest. I don't know that it was because I was a woman or it was because I'm Asian. Of course, nobody would come out and say that is the reason. Right. So it's really hard to know because regardless, it's so hard. So I don't know that I have a great answer for you because, it's never been overt. And I have started writing Asian or Asian American content in the last I've only started writing in the last 5 years, but so and that's sort of in the time that things have been changing and people are looking for that and are more open. So that's great. And also I haven't had my film made yet, so
right.
Yeah.
And I guess any additional advice for all sort of AAPI dramatists out there who are sort of in the, getting out there in the field, doing the thing, working with some imposter syndrome? What advice do you have for us?
Put yourself on the page. Sort of like I said before, it's not about you have to have, had the experience of the actual event of whatever you're writing about, but there is a truth and authenticity of places that might be uncomfortable to go. But those are the things that are really real, and that's what's going to resonate with people when you are able to feel those things that maybe you don't want to feel. But be brave and put that on the page because it will resonate.
Yeah. And I think that goes for the same as actors as well. Find the projects that resonate with you, put yourself into it, and don't be scared to, like you said, like put your artistic self out there. Thank you for that. Those are some extremely wise words. Before I let you go, last but not least, how do we get in touch with you on social media or via website, etc.?
My website is www.tricialeedirector.com. On Instagram, it's Tricia Lee Director. Facebook, Tricia Lee Director. And Twitter, Tricia L Director, because there's not enough characters. Yeah.